thoughts, clams? Well, I've been gone for a while because I was diagnosed with a vitamin D deficiency and hyper hypo hyperthyroidism. So I'm still getting blood tests and figuring out what all of this means. But in the meantime, I mean, I've been really, really, really tired. So that's why I've been MIA, because I've been so exhausted. So I need to get my water. Okay. So and thirsty. I'm really thirsty. But what I have been doing is working out. And even though I don't have the yoga swing, I have done a couple modifications for some of my weight lifting stuff. And I wanted to show you guys some of my little modifications so you can see the difference. Let's see. We do like this, one leg lifts. What I've been doing is, I have this bench right in front of me, putting my leg forward and doing my reps like this. So I do like 15 and then 12 and then 15 again. 3 sets. Okay. Okay. Now, then also with the weights, or you know, the bar rested on the front of my thighs, then I go down and up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 12. Now on this one, I'm going to hold little pulses. 20. Okay. All right. Now, you can't really see, but my back has also, oh, and one of the things that I've also done is I started taking a creatine pill. I just bought it at like Walmart. The creatine powder was like behind, you know, this like locked security door, and it takes forever to get somebody to come there. So I was like, I'm just gonna get this creatine pill. And at first I felt like it kept me awake, and I really didn't know if I saw any results. Now it says to take 3 a day. I take 1 a day. Because with hypothyroidism, you supposedly, it's the symptoms of it are like feeling nervous all the time. You know, essentially what's happening is the thyroid is not regulating your hormones to your brain, to, you know, for serotonin, for the right serotonin levels, and dopamine and stuff like that. And so what happens is you get rushes of you know, all these different hormones that you really, you know, that are out of sync, really. And so, you know, you can have hyper or hypo, and supposedly you're not supposed to be able to gain weight and stuff, but I mean, I can't, because I gained weight from one time to seeing the doctor to the other. So now I'm going to, I guess, an endocrinologist. Is that what they said? I think so. But somebody who I guess looks at the nervous system. I don't know. But anyway, I'm supposed to be getting more blood tests and stuff. So all the information I've gotten, I've just been reading about, because my doctor, she's really not really saying much. At first, they thought that I might have some some lesions on my thyroid. So I got a mammogram of it, ultrasound of it. Sorry, mammogram, ultrasound on each side of my thyroid, and they said there were some small things, but it was benign. So anyway, with the vitamin D, taking that daily, and then I take a prescription of it on Saturdays. All of a sudden, I just was exhausted. So anyway, but the one thing I forced myself to do is keep working out. You know, obviously I'm online a lot, and so it's better to look better online. And I mean, I'm getting older. So I'm, you know, while my thyroid supposedly is a mess, I feel calm and stuff. It's weird. But I decided I was gonna like kick it in with the creatine and stuff. And I asked my doctor, and she said it was fine. And I really have noticed quite a bit of results. So I don't know if you guys have. I was trying to get my maintenance guy to put my yoga swing in here. He says there's beams up there. So I think in like, you know, a couple weeks, I'm probably just gonna venture up there myself. It's just some tiles I have to move around, and we'll see what I find. Because I would really love to have that back. I noticed like with my shoulders and stuff, they were like amazing when I was doing that yoga swing. Okay, so the other thing, so with a vitamin D deficiency, what happens is your body doesn't make vitamin D. And I was wondering why I was having all this back pain and stuff, and it just felt like my body was like cracking. And what happens is your body starts sucking calcium from your bones because it's looking for vitamin D. Vitamin D and calcium generally go together, and they hang out next to each other, I guess. And so when your bodies can't find vitamin D, it starts pulling it from your bones, from the calcium in your bones, any bit it can. When it can't get it from there, it starts trying to pull it from your liver. If it can't get it from there, so all these things, so you start having, I was like going into osteoporosis, no joke. And I was wondering, I mean, sometimes I couldn't even sit down in my car. It would hurt so bad. And I was like, what is going on? Like, it was like cracking. It was like, so, I was like, okay. And it's just funny because, you know, I quit eating dairy 2 years ago when I got online because it made me phlegmy. And I didn't like to be phlegmy online, you know, because I get a lot of compliments about my voice and stuff. And so I never even thought, I thought I'm out in the sun enough. I never even realized how important vitamin D is. So if you guys are feeling fatigued, angry, and you don't go outside very much, and you don't eat any breakfast cereals or anything, and you live in the US, if you're feeling like your bones, especially women, if you feel like your bones are like you're losing mobility, like I couldn't even put my underwear on, like I couldn't lift this side and just put, you know, stick my foot through anymore. I couldn't even lift myself up like this. It was crazy. It's gotten so much better. But I mean, that's why I've been, you know, really taking care of myself for the last couple of months, mostly resting and just taking all my vitamins, eating tons of fruits and vegetables, spending time outside with my dog, you know, as much as possible. Just, you know, I'm not doing any reflecting anymore. I'm focusing on, you know, what's next in my life. And I am supposed to be starting like a certification class, possibly in AI. I'm not sure yet. I want it to kind of complement, you know, my education already, but we'll see. I also want something that is going to take me, you know, into the future. They say 50-year-old women are the future of work. I'm not quite 50, but you know, I was hoping to retire at 50. Anyway, back to the exercises. You know, just a few modifications, and I've always talked about this, can be some major results. So we talked about the front leg, right? And you can do this with anything. I have a kettlebell, okay? And that brings me to my next exercise. Something that I read about, what that was supposedly this like amazing thing for your abs. And you know, a lot of times people that get older don't like to get down on the ground to do abs and stuff. I think, you know, you might as well. I mean, it doesn't bother me. But this exercise is essentially, let's see. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see. Let me move this over here. Okay. Now, and this is a pretty heavy weight, so let's see if I can even do it. I haven't tried with this. I usually use like these like weights on my head, but it's called a Turkish sit-up. Okay, so you go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you repeat it on the other side. So let's do that quickly so we can finish up this little set here. And this is like a game changer, I swear. And so they say you're supposed to keep your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Your arm as straight as possible, right? So those are probably going to be pretty crazy because I haven't done it with a 15-pound kettle weight before. Okay, so the other couple things, you know, I've always been a big proponent of stretching, especially now. You know, the first thing I do when I get out of bed really is stretch. As much as I want to, you know, go make my coffee, or, you know, I think, oh, I'm just going to do this or that, just stretch. It's so huge for your tendons and your muscles. And basically, you know, you're telling your body it's time to wake up. And that's the other thing that I've been doing a lot of learning on is neuroplasticity. Because, you know, I started seeing a therapist, and something that I think was keeping me back was just being in so much like awe and wonderment and disappointment and everything about people around me, you know, my parents, my child, all of that stuff. And thinking of the volatility of it just would send me into a really terrible place for a long time sometimes. And it was prohibiting me from moving forward. And what I've realized is you do not have to be your trauma. You know, we all think, oh, if I don't have anyone, if, you know, if so-and-so doesn't love me, if I don't have my daughter's love, and we end up sacrificing who we are as people to gain the love of somebody who really doesn't really deserve our love, if we have to change who we are for them to care for us and love us, right? And so what I've realized is, as hurtful as it feels, because in most of the world, when you're estranged from your family, it means, something terrible has happened. That's true. But it's a choice, right? It's like I'm not gonna follow crumbs for a inconsistent, um, you know, non-supportive relationship with anybody anymore. And I think that, understanding too what was going on with my brain and my hormones and everything, how much vitamin D deficiency can cause you depression and fatigue, and but depression is really big one, and the same with hyperthyroidism. You, because your body thinks you're on go all the time, you know, going 60 miles an hour, um, you're not thinking clearly all the time because you have too much dopamine, not enough serotonin. Your body isn't regulating properly. And understanding that for myself was such a huge eye opener. And it was really just, I was listening to Andrew Huberman on the Huberman Lab, and just listening to him talk about things, and the effects that certain things in the environment, or certain things that are literally toxic to people that have too much of something or not enough, just naturally, and when they don't know it, right, what they're doing to self-medicate or whatever they're doing is they're toxifying themselves times 1,000, and they're inhibiting themselves from even thinking a little bit clearly, and they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand. People are like, oh, they're lazy, they're a procrastinator, they're this, they're that, they're stuck on their past, they can't get a job. I think it's much deeper than that. And I think if we started talking about, neuroses, our brains, and how imperative, it's such a delicate balance inside of our bodies that helps our brain function. Now, our brain and our mind are two totally different things, right? And what I've learned about neuroplasticity is when our brain is going to do what evolution has taught the brain to do for 300,000 years. So we create habits out of trauma, right? And what happens is our brain, to feel safe, our brain wants the path of least resistance all the time. So our brain is always going to choose that habit that we've now acquired to deal with our trauma that's not healthy for us. Even though we don't want to do it, right? We know we shouldn't do it because it's tearing our lives apart or whatever it's doing, right? Our brain is always, we're like, why can't I stop this? Why don't I have enough willpower? It's not willpower, right? It's a chemical reaction in your body. But what we have as human beings, I'm not sure if other animals have the ability to do this, is we can say to ourselves, no, brain, no, right now we're not doing that. Right now we're focusing on this new habit. We're focusing, and what happens is, because when we have old habits that we keep going back to, we think that we're going to get that dopamine rush, right? We think we're going to get that, we never really do. We never get it like the first time, because the only time we really create true dopamine effects in our brains is when we're trying something new, right? So as we age, if we're learning a language, if we're learning a new skill, if we're, doing a puzzle, something where we can see the results, and it's tangible to our brain, right? Because our brain has no idea. It has no idea if something is fantasy, reality, if it's, what it is. It just knows that when we get excited, or when we feel accomplished, or when we're trying something new, or we get a rush of drugs or something like that, that dopamine rush, rushes into our brain, and we're like, and our brain likes that, but it has no idea the difference between a drug or learning a language or whatever. It just knows it likes that dopamine rush. So if you trade a negative habit or a bad habit that you have for a good habit, or try to stop the other habit, what you're going to notice actually is the more you try positive things in your life, accomplish them, and keep trying positive things, you're going to keep getting better and higher dopamine rushes. As opposed to, if you're going the path of least resistance, your brain thinks, because it's protecting itself, it thinks it's going to get that dopamine rush, but it's not even going to compare to the rush it's going to get when you're changing your thinking, changing your patterns, trying something new and learning something new. That is what feeds our neuroplasticity. When we do the same thing over and over and over, we're not feeding our brain any nourishment. We're not teaching it to be elastic. We're not teaching it to be expandable. We're teaching it to just go the path of least resistance, which is ultimately death. I mean, it's death for all of us, but wouldn't you rather be, skydiving or bungee jumping when you're 90 because you're willing to try something new? And that's something I definitely notice about myself and other people as they age. They are deathly afraid to try something new, whether it's, going on to a new internet page, just going on the internet period, trying something with their business. There's this saying, right? I don't want to change it. We've always done it this way. And that's, to an IT person, when I was in IT, if somebody said that, I said, well, that doesn't work here, because technology is always changing. And so we have to be agile. Your business has to be agile. And so we would try to, but there's so many IT guys that wanted it that way too, because then they didn't have to change. They didn't have to learn something new. They didn't have to change the way that they did something. And it made them needed. If they made something so complicated that somebody had to call them every single time, they needed a result because it was so complicated, they liked that. That made them feel needed. And so, but again, had they tried something new, had the environment changed to something that was scalable, something that was better for the business, something that could have been cheaper, with a tiny bit of work, it could have been a lot better for everyone involved. They could have gotten better accolades and more dopamine, right? Because at the end of the day, that's really what our brain is looking for, is a dopamine rush, right? That's when we drink coffee in the morning, when we work out, when we cheat on our spouse, or whatever it is that we're doing that we think is, that we know, like in our, I know it's wrong, or I know it's taboo, or I know it's this. We think that why we're doing it is to get that rush. That's what our brain thinks. But we've already gotten the rush, right? So now what we're doing is we're just dealing with the repercussions of the original action, or hiding it, or whatever that is, and searching for that rush again. Whereas if we changed our thinking and our pattern to a healthy pattern, and to where we could keep making healthier choices for our mind, body, and soul, we would continue getting that dopamine rush, right? So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's something that I've really been learning. And one of the healthiest things for neuroplasticity as you age is working out, especially if you're changing up your routine. And that's why I thought it was so important to show you some modifications that I was making. Okay, and so I showed you the front leg lifts, and I showed you the Turkish sit-ups. Okay, so I just want to quickly stretch for the last couple minutes, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope that I didn't bore you too much, and that you know, maybe if you know, you struggle with anything, or if you're angry at yourself, because I used to get so upset and like, why can't I change this? Why do I do the same thing every day? Because we have to actually say to ourselves, and one of the things that helps me is writing a list. When I write a list, that helps change my brain from saying, you know, to not get to getting unfocused to staying focused. And I know that, but sometimes I refuse to make the list because it's almost like I want to go the path of least resistance, and I think, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. Well, there's nothing wrong. We have to be conscious and self-aware and really focus on rewiring our brains. And then we absolutely can, and we know that we can. So anyway, again, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed some of these modifications, and I just want to let you guys know I'm going to be getting back to a regular schedule and stuff.